Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing how long does it take to get your ex back? I provide audio coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details. www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing how long does it take to get your ex back? So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you are likely wondering the time it will take to get your ex back into a brand new and longer lasting relationship. In today's podcast, I'll be giving you 3 points to consider when answering this question, including some crazy examples that I've been told of. Let me know in the YouTube comments how long ago your breakup was, and let's get straight into this. So point number 1 is nothing can be guaranteed. There is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back. Nothing works 100% of the time and nothing fails 100% of the time. It's so important that we live in reality. We have to accept the breakup and move forward in a way that increases our chance of success rather than reduces it. But ultimately, and sadly for some, not everybody will get their ex back. So when we answer the question, how long does it take to get your ex back? Unfortunately, the answer isn't the same for everyone. And for some of you, sadly, you won't be able to achieve this. Anybody who says that you can get your ex back by doing A, B, and C, unfortunately, is not telling you the truth, because nothing can be guaranteed. There is no paint by numbers advice. There is no magic formula which equates to definitive success. If you listen to my podcasts, if you follow the hints, tips, advice, and strategy, if you have an audio coaching call with me where we can really delve in deeper on your unique situation and look at what we can do to increase your chance of success, that is exactly what we are doing. We are increasing your chance of success. We are making your chance of success higher than if you didn't know the information, the strategies, and the support that I will give you. However, nothing can be guaranteed. And I think it's really important to start today's podcast off by sounding and focusing on reality. We have to really embed ourselves in the reality of the situation. Currently, right now, you are a single person. Your ex is not with you anymore. Okay, maybe they're single as well. Maybe they're in a relationship with somebody new. Whatever the situation, I'm sure this is very, very challenging for you. I'm sure it's very painful. But let me just tell you right now, these feelings you are feeling are temporary. The feelings that you feel won't last forever. And your negativity right now is not how things are going to be forevermore. This doesn't mean you will definitely get your ex back, but I believe if you live a positive life, if you do enough of the right things, then eventually the right things come to you. And this might not be getting your ex back. Instead, it might be finding somebody even better. My podcasts, my audio coaching service, everything that I provide and do for you, the supporters of my channel, is guiding you towards happiness. I don't mind if you get your ex back or not. All I care about is happiness, because ultimately, what matters more than happiness? Happiness, fulfillment, and satisfaction. It doesn't matter if that's with your ex or with somebody new. It just matters that you feel love within yourself and the life you are living right now. So if and when me and you speak on an audio coaching call, I will give you my thoughts on your current situation and provide you with a strategy to try and attract your ex back, but also to attract somebody even better. Because not all of you will best be suited to your ex. I'll give my opinion. You don't have to follow it. But what I will say is if you do this, this, and this will increase the chance of your success, but it can't be guaranteed. But if you do enough of these right things, even if you don't get your ex back, you will likely attract somebody even better via growing your attraction net and becoming a version 2.0 of yourself. The strategies increase your chance of success. They don't guarantee it. But please always remember, if you live your life in a positive way, you are more likely to have positive results. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about how long does it take to get your ex back. And point number 2 is my research. So my research is, of course, my research. It's not everybody else's research. And please bear that in mind. If other people say different things, that is down to them. I can only tell you my facts, my figures, and therefore what my beliefs are based upon. Now, when we look at how long it takes to get an ex back, there is a wide range of results. Some people get their ex back after a matter of days, and as I said at the other end of the scale, some people never get their ex back at all. For those people who do get their ex back, sometimes it can take years. So when we look at a few days at one end of a scale and a few years at the other end of a scale, what I would say is the average amount of time to get your ex back is around the 6-month mark. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get your ex back sooner, and it doesn't mean that you can't get your ex back after that point. If you and your ex have broken up and it's now been more than 6 months, please don't feel that this means you can't get your ex back, because it doesn't mean that. It just means it's the average amount of time. Now, it's important for me to say that my research shows that after a year, your chances of success do decline. They don't disappear completely. And as you will hear in point number 3, there are some crazy stories that I will be giving you as examples of what is possible. But when we're answering that question, how long does it take to get an ex back? When will I get my ex back? All I can say to you is my results show that the average amount of time is around the 6-month mark. It could be before, it could be later, it might sadly be never. But always remember that you shouldn't be waiting for your ex. You shouldn't be clock watching, sitting around and not living your life. If you want to get your ex back, then ironically, living your life to the full, making new connections, even dating new people, will actually increase your chance of success rather than reduce it. So sitting around at home not only doesn't increase your chance of success, but it also makes things much, much tougher for you, because if you aren't filling your life, you will be thinking of your ex, you will be worrying, you will be feeling sad, and you will be getting yourself into a non-stable position. So really, it's win-win. You know, if you move forward with your life, if you make new connections, you will either get your ex back or you'll meet somebody even better, because that is, of course, what could happen if you're living your life. That is what you need to do, and that is what I would always suggest. Now, some people ask me, well, how many people get their ex back very, very quickly? Well, it's very, very few people. If you are somebody who has recently been broken up with, please don't think you can get your ex back within a few days every single time. These types of results are very, very rare. It's more likely to be months. As I said, 6 months or beyond is probably the most common. I'm also asked the question, what happens if me and my ex have had multiple breakups? Well, my research shows that the more breakups you have with somebody, the less chance you have of reconnecting. Now, that doesn't mean you can't reconnect if you broke up previously. I've known people who have broken up 2, 3, 4 times and still got back together, but the chances do reduce. If you've had one breakup with this person, you still stand an excellent chance of getting back together. But once this becomes 2, 3, 4 breakups, what you are showing is a proof of concept that this relationship doesn't work. Now, of course, you can move forward in a positive way. Your ex can move forward in a positive way. You can both grow as people. But if you don't, if things aren't resolved, then unfortunately, this is not likely to last. Additionally, your ex might think, well, this relationship hasn't worked numerous times before. I don't even want to give it another try. So my research shows that the more breakups you have with somebody, the less chance you will have of reconnecting again. So don't always think, well, I got back together with my ex after 2 months last time, so it'll be 2 months again. That's not likely. It's more likely to be even longer, if at all. But always remember, as I said in point number 1, that happiness is the key. All we care about is happiness, fulfillment and satisfaction. If it's not with your ex, it can and will be with somebody else. So please don't be fearful. It's so important to hold on to positive beliefs, positive memories, positive focus. You don't live a positive life if you think negatively. That goes without saying, but just think about that for a second. If you want to live a positive life, if you want to feel satisfaction and happiness, being negative isn't going to help you get there. Being bitter, angry, frustrated, being somebody who can't let the past go, this won't help you. You know, if you live a life where you're always regretting the past, where you're always thinking to yourself, I really dislike this person, I'm really unhappy about this, this and this, these types of negative feelings won't help you. And although it is hard to move forward, although it is hard to let go of negativity, ultimately it's your only option if you want to live with happiness in your heart. Sometimes it takes people months, years, even longer than that. But with professional help, you can get there, you will get there. And I believe you can have a fulfilling, long-lasting relationship, whether it's with your ex or somebody even better. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about how long does it take to get your ex back. And point number 3 is crazy examples. So I said at the start of today's podcast, I was going to let you know some crazy examples to show that anything is possible. And I've got a few examples to share with you right now. The first one was something that I was told by a client, but they was actually telling me the story of one of their parents. Now, I'm going to try to be as vague as I can, obviously, for privacy reasons, but in essence, the story goes along the lines of this person's parent, I won't say which one, had a relationship which ended when they were very young. Now, 30 years later, after that relationship ended, this person who had been the person who ended the relationship, they were the dumper, they went off into the sunset. 30 years later, they knocked on the door of this person's parent, okay? They knocked on the door and they wanted to have a catch up and see how things could develop from there. Now, the person was thinking, how on earth did they find me? You know, this person's parent was wondering, how did they find me? Because I no longer live in the same house that I once did. I live in the same village, but not the same house. Apparently, the dumper had come back to the village. The dumper had gone to one of the local shops, I believe it was a close-knit community, and actually asked whether this parent actually still lived in the area. And when they found out they did, they asked for their address, and then they went there and they knocked on the door. That is crazy. That is 30 years later, and that is the longest time I've ever heard of where a dumper has come back, okay? They wanted to catch up initially, but apparently it became very clear that they were regretful about ending the relationship all of those decades prior and wanted to see how things developed. Now, my client didn't tell me any more about how this actually went from there. I don't know if they got back together or not, but what you can see here is a dumper coming back after 30 years and knocking on someone's door. That is incredibly unlikely. If anything, it would normally be done via text, but perhaps for various reasons, maybe a generational thing, maybe it was more of a situation regarding not having the number at all. Whatever the scenario situation was, what we can see is a dumper came back when surely nobody else involved in the story could ever have imagined it. Your ex, the dumper, will never forget you, and we never know when the story ends. So now I'm going to get into another quick example of something which I believe to be crazy and really give you that hope and belief. And this is an instance of where a dumper sent a text message to their dumpee 3 years later. So this is not 30 years, but 3 years is still a very large chunk of time. And this was more of a scenario where it was what you would expect in regards to how the reach out was. It was via text message. The dumper reached out to the dumpee after 3 years or so and was basically asking how they were and starting to develop conversation. In this instance, I was told the dumpee decided not to progress the conversation because they themselves had moved forward with their life in a way where they didn't want to entertain this. However, they had the opportunity to, and this was 3 years later. Again, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, it feels like a very long time, and the odds of success do reduce after more than 12 months, but it can still happen. Okay, we see here a dumper reaching out, asking how their dumpee was, and then trying to take the conversation in a direction that the dumpee didn't want to anymore, and therefore it wasn't entertained, but there could have easily been a reconciliation from that point if the dumpee had wanted it to. Something to bear in mind if you are a dumpee and you think, okay, it's only been a few weeks, I've not heard from my ex, I never will again. Well, you never know. Maybe years later you will, but you shouldn't be waiting around. Okay, you need to be living your life. So now I'm going to get into a final example of point number 3 and the end of today's podcast. And this example is of somebody receiving a text off a person they'd never even met. So in this instance, these two people were speaking via online dating. They never even met. They never met each other, and hence you would think that there would be nothing between them, surely. However, after more than 2 years of their last conversation, the dumpee, if we're to call it that, it wasn't even a proper relationship, but the person who wanted to carry on speaking, but unfortunately for them were told, look, I don't think we should carry on, we'll call them the dumpee. They received a text message from, we'll call the dumper, asking them, did you receive a missed call off me? If you did, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. Now the dumpee had not received any missed call off this number which they didn't recognise. Now, as it transpires, this was the dumper doing what I believe is an indirect direct approach. I don't believe there was an accidental missed call. I believe it was an excuse to start a conversation. Clearly, the dumper had kept the dumpee's contact details, even though the dumpee had clearly deleted the dumpers. The dumpee didn't recognise the number, but the dumper knew full well who they were speaking to. This was another great example of what you can see of how a dumper may reach out in a way which isn't obvious. It doesn't come out straight away and say, I miss you. You know, this is not an example that we often see. It's indirect. I don't believe it was a real reason. The dumpee said that they didn't have a missed call. So it seems like a load of nonsense to me, just a reason to send a text, see how things develop. And basically from there, apparently once again, it became clear that the dumper wanted to try to engage once more and see how things went. But as we see again, the dumpee had by this point met somebody new and was actually in a relationship. So they cut this short. Again, we see an opportunity here of potential reconciliation if the dumpee wanted to. So, if you look at those 3 crazy examples, I'm sure you can understand more when I say we never know when the story ends. We truly don't. You don't know when your life story with your ex has fully finished. It's the end of a chapter. It's not necessarily the end of the book. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.
Yeah, if you miss your ex, we can help with that. Help you get him back, or we can help find you someone else. Yeah, Vincent Bo, the relationship coach, giving you some insight, bringing you a new approach. DateMe.tips, go and check the site, giving you advice, helping with your love life. Get your ex back, or move to the next. Ain't no sweat, you know Vincent Bo got you. Finding love ain't no problem. Yeah, DateMe.tips, check it out now.